I think it can be traced to a journalist in Canada. He wrote and basically challenged people to go to New York and occupy Wall Street. And since it's grown, it's now worldwide. The top 1% of the population in this country controls the bulk of the wealth. And that over the last 30 years, the 99% of the population, their income has increased by like 2 or 3% over like 30 years. Whereas the 1%ers, their income has increased, I think it's over 200%. They like to say that 400 people control more wealth than 150 million Americans. So it's a discrepancy as far as redistribution of wealth to the upper tiers as opposed to the middle, the lower tiers. I think they have a couple things. First, they want to see income redistribution back to the middle class. The tax rates on the upper 1%, as far as income tax, is lower than the middle class. That's basically your Bush tax cuts, which are due to expire here at the end of the year, I do believe. But what they want to see is the top 1% to be taxed at a higher rate, and that will redistribute to the middle class. Well, the only way their goals can be reached is if they can take this movement and turn it political. That is to say, turn it into votes. I think the next step is possibly an impact on the 2012 elections, much like you had the Tea Party in 2010. Ironically, both extremes, the Tea Party and the Occupy movement, they're both upset about the same thing, the bailout of Wall Street. But they're taking two different approaches to that. If you see the President Barack Obama moving more toward the Occupy protesters in his rhetoric and some of his platforms or policies and things like that, if he doesn't, if he just tries to stay in the middle course, I think possibly you'll see this Occupy Wall Street continue to grow. I think that there's something else driving them other than just, gee, we want to get together in a park and sit around and talk and party and have a good time. That was how they were painted by mainstream media at the beginning. I think there's more substance there, and I think that when the authorities take generators and knock down tents and things like that, I think it actually strengthens their resolve. They're determined to spend the winter in these parks and things regardless of the weather. So, and again, what happens is when the authorities do things like this, the people that's sitting on the sidelines, the sympathy goes to the protesters. So I think they're actually, emboldening and encouraging more people to take the protester sides by doing these things. Absolutely. If you look at India, when Gandhi was using a non-violent protest to oust the British out of India, there was riots there. So as authorities use more of their weapons, force against the protesters, there tends to be a backlash from those protesters, and force is met with force, and that's how you get into the riots and things. I believe that you need a redistribution of wealth to the middle class. What happens is if you end up with what's known as a bourgeois elite, you end up with revolution. History has taught us that, if nothing else. So right now, you haven't had this type of income disparity since the early 20s, at the height of the Gilded Age in this country. And that was when you had the robber barons and things of that nature. So again, I think that there should be a higher tax on the wealthier people. It should be a progressive tax system. Herein lies the problem, because the devil's in the details. You know, what about deductions? Everybody wants to have their own deduction and keep their own deduction. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But you can't. If you do nothing at all, you're going to have a redistribution of wealth to the very, very wealthy. It's going to continue on. It's going to get, progressively worse. Instead of 400 people controlling most of the wealth, we're going to end up with 200, and then 100, then 50.
Mm-hmm.
So there comes a point in time. And during the time that we had the most redistribution of wealth from the upper class, the top 1%, down to the middle class, our economy was the strongest in the world.